There is a mason jar sitting on a shelf in my potting shed in rural Ohio right now. There is no fancy label on it, just a strip of masking tape and a date written in pencil, 1981. Inside that jar are dried tomato seeds, and the family that handed them over my fence has been saving seed from that same tomato since before I ever picked up a trowel. You cannot buy that tomato at a garden center. You will not find it on the seed rack at the hardware store. And yet last August, while the shiny hybrid tomatoes 2 gardens over were getting chewed to lace by hornworms, that old tomato stood in my garden barely touched, loaded down with fruit. That is not luck. Stay with me to the end, because the reason these old vegetables shrug off trouble that flattens the modern ones comes down to one specific thing that got bred out of our vegetables over the last 70 years. Nobody took it away out of meanness. The seed companies were chasing something else entirely. But once you hear what that thing is, you will never read a seed catalog the same way again. I'm Bill, though most folks online know me as Backyard Bill. I've spent 30 years learning hard lessons on a little piece of land in rural Ohio, and for too many of those years I fought my garden with a rototiller and a shelf of chemicals and lost. My greatest teachers live right across the fence in the Amish community I'm blessed to call my neighbors. Most of what I'm sharing today I learned from my friend Daniel, and out of respect I change small details whenever I tell stories about the community. Today I want to walk you through 15 of those old vegetables. These are varieties that Amish families and other plain communities have kept going for generations, some of them for more than 100 years, by doing one simple thing. Every fall they save seed from the plants that did well. Now, a quick word so we're all speaking the same language. These are what seed folks call open pollinated varieties. That just means the seed grows true. Save seed from this year's plant and next year's plant comes up the same. Heirloom is simply the word for an open pollinated variety that has been handed down through a family or community. You cannot do that with most modern hybrids. Save seed from a hybrid and you get a surprise, and usually not a good one. So when the big seed companies moved to hybrids after the war, they were not being wicked. Hybrids were uniform. They shipped across the country without bruising, and a company can sell them to you fresh every single spring. There was just never much money in a seed a family saves for itself. So the old varieties quietly slipped out of the catalogs, and they survived in the places where seed saving never stopped, places like the settlement across my fence. I will come back to why these old plants stand up to pests the way they do, because that is the part almost everybody gets wrong, and it is the very same reason they taste better. But first, let me show you what is worth growing. Now, everything on today's list fits inside a bigger system, and I wrote that whole system down in a book called The 30-Day Amish Pest-Proof Garden Protocol. It is the complete old world system I learned from my Amish neighbors for building a garden that defends itself from pests without chemicals, laid out as a 30-day protocol any home gardener can follow 1 week at a time. Week 1 is called Kill Nothing, build everything, and by week 4 you are building the self-defending garden. It also covers the deeper skills that come along with it, things like seed saving, hand tools, and preserving the harvest. It is 117 pages, and it costs $17, marked down from $47. Set that $17 against a shelf of sprays you buy again every single season. Now go ahead and grab your phone and open up your camera, the same one you use to take pictures. Point it at that square code on your screen and hold it steady for a second. A little link will pop up, give it a tap, and it will take you straight to the book. And if you are watching on your phone right now, the link is waiting for you right down below in the description. Take your time. There is no rush at all. I'll wait right here. All right, let's get to the list. And number 1 is the tomato from that mason jar's family tree. Number 1, the Amish paste tomato. This one was kept for generations by an Amish community out in Wisconsin before seed savers carried it across the country. It is a big, meaty, red paste tomato shaped a little like a heart, with hardly any seeds and hardly any water in it. That matters if you can sauce, because one basket of Amish paste cooks down to more sauce than 2 baskets of watery slicers. The vines are strong growers, so give each plant a sturdy stake or a cage. Plant it deep, right up to the first true leaves, and it will root along the buried stem and anchor itself. My plants from the neighbor's seed line handle our Ohio summers without complaint, and every August I save seed from the best plant in the row. Hold on to that idea of saving from the best plant. It matters more than you know yet. Number 2, the Brandywine tomato. This is the old legend from Chester County, Pennsylvania, grown since the 1880s, and plenty of folks still call it the best tasting tomato in America. You will know it in the garden because the leaves look like potato leaves, wide and smooth instead of ferny. The fruits are big pink beefsteaks, sometimes a pound apiece. That is a full pound from one tomato. They crack sometimes, they ripen unevenly, and they would never survive a truck ride to a supermarket. That is exactly why the stores drop them. But sliced on a plate with a little salt in August, nothing in a store comes close. Give Brandywine your sunniest spot in steady water, and be patient, because the best things in a garden are rarely the fastest. Number 3, Amish deer tongue lettuce. The name comes from the shape of the leaf, a slim green point like a deer's tongue, and this lettuce has been in plain community gardens for well over a century. Its gift is patience in the heat. Modern lettuces bolt, which just means they shoot up a flower stalk and turn bitter the minute June warms up. Deer tongue holds on weeks longer. Sow a short row every 2 weeks from early spring and cut the outer leaves so the center keeps producing. 1 packet of seed, and if you let a single plant go to flower at the end, you will never need to buy lettuce seed again. Number 4, the Amish snap pea. Folks think snap peas were invented in the 1970s, but Amish families were growing sweet, thick-podded snap peas long before that, and this variety is one of the survivors. You eat the whole pod, no shelling and no strings worth fussing over. Plant them early, as soon as the soil can be worked in spring, because peas love cold feet. Give them a fence of chicken wire to climb, and here is a bit of old wisdom Daniel put better than I ever could. He says, the peas you plant on time feed the family, and the peas you plant late feed the rabbits. Timing is most of the battle with peas. Number 5, the lazy housewife bean. That is truly its name, and it goes back over 200 years in the Pennsylvania Dutch country. It earned the name because it was the first well-known pole bean with no strings to pull, so it saved the cook an hour at the sink. It is a climbing bean, so give it a tall pole or a teepee of 3 poles tied at the top. It bears late but heavy, and the beans stay tender even when they get big. Sow the seed an inch deep. After all, danger of frost, 1 inch, no deeper, and thin to 1 strong plant every 6 inches. Now, remember I told you there is one specific thing that got bred out of modern vegetables? Keep it in the back of your mind, because these next few on the list wear their defenses right where you can see them. Number 6, the Amish nuddle bean. This is a little speckled dry bean, and the old way to grow it tells you something about how these gardens think. Amish families planted nuddle beans right at the base of their corn, and the beans climbed the corn stalks. So the corn did the trellis work for free. Meanwhile, the beans, like all beans, feed the soil as they grow. That is companion planting, which just means putting plants together so each one helps the other. Let the pods dry brown on the vine, shell them on the porch in October, and you have a jar of soup beans that keeps all winter and doubles as next year's seed. 1 planting. 2 harvests, no trellis to buy. Number 7, Waltham butternut squash. Pay attention to this one because it carries the clearest example on the whole list of a plant defending itself. If you have grown zucchini or yellow squash, you have probably met the squash vine borer, that grub that tunnels into the stem and collapses a beautiful plant overnight. Butternut belongs to a different old squash family with solid, dense stems instead of hollow ones. The borer's grub has nowhere easy to tunnel, so most years it simply fails. That is not a spray. That is not a trick. That is the plant's own body doing the work. Waltham is the classic open pollinated strain. It stores on a cool shelf until spring, and the soup it makes in January tastes like October. Give each hill plenty of room, about 8 feet of run, 8 full feet, because the vines mean business. Number 8, the Amish pie pumpkin. This one was kept by an Amish family in the hills of Maryland, and it is a big, pale orange pumpkin grown for one purpose: pie. The flesh runs thick, sometimes close to 5 inches of it, sweet and smooth with hardly any stringiness. One good fruit will fill your freezer with enough cooked pumpkin for a winter of baking. Grow it like the butternut, full sun and lots of room, and set the growing fruit on a scrap of board to keep its bottom off the damp soil. That one little board prevents most of the rot problems folks blame on the weather. Number 9, ground cherries. If your grandmother came from Pennsylvania Dutch country, she may have called these husk cherries, and she may have made them into a pie you still remember. A ground cherry is a small golden fruit that grows inside its own papery husk like a tiny paper lantern, and it tastes somewhere between a pineapple and a tomato. Now think about that husk for a second. The fruit ripens sealed inside its own wrapper, out of reach of most of the birds and bugs that ruin soft fruit. The plant even tells you when harvest time comes because the fruit drops to the ground when it is ripe. You just gather them up like little presents. Plant them once, let a few fruits stay on the ground, and they will come back on their own next year. Number 10, Black Beauty eggplant. This is the deep purple eggplant in your mind's eye when somebody says the word, and it has been grown unchanged since 1902. That is more than 120 years of gardeners saving its seed from long before hybrids existed. It is dependable, heavy bearing, and the seed grows true year after year. Eggplants do have one enemy worth naming: the flea beetle, a pinhead-sized black beetle that peppers young leaves with holes. The old defense is patience and a cover. Set your plants out a week or two later than your neighbors do, when the plants are bigger and the beetles are past their spring rush. A simple row cover, which is just a light garden cloth laid over hoops, keeps them off entirely while the plant is young. I keep mentioning that one thing the breeders bred away, and I promise the answer's coming. And this eggplant's 100-year seed line is a piece of the puzzle. Number 11, early Jersey Wakefield cabbage. This pointed head cabbage goes back to the 1840s, and its defense against the cabbage worm is speed. It makes a tight cone-shaped head in around 60 days, a good 2 to 3 weeks ahead of the big round storage cabbages. Set it out early, and it is cut, cored, and in the kitchen before the worst of the summer worm pressure ever arrives. You did not fight the pest. You just were not there when it showed up. The heads are the perfect size for one family meal, and the flavor is sweeter and more tender than anything shrink wrapped at the store. Number 12, Boston pickling cucumber. Grown since the 1880s and bred by market gardeners for one honest purpose: the pickle crock. The fruits come small, straight, and all at once in flushes, which is exactly what you want when you are filling jars. Pick them small, no longer than your finger for gherkins, and pick every single day once they start. every day, because one overlooked cucumber going to seed tells the whole vine to quit. If your grandmother kept a crock of fermented pickles in the cellar, there is a fair chance this is the cucumber that went into it. Number 13, the Danvers carrot. This carrot was developed by farmers around Danvers, Massachusetts in the 1870s, and its gift is that it does not demand perfect soil. Most modern long carrots want deep, fluffy, sandy ground. Danvers is shorter and broader at the shoulder, shaped like a wedge, and it will push through the heavier clay soils most of us actually have. Sow the seed shallow, about a quarter inch, just a quarter inch, and keep the bed moist until the ferny tops appear, thin to 2 inches apart, and be ruthless about it because crowded carrots stay skinny out of politeness. Number 14, Detroit dark red beet. Since 1892, this has been the beet, deep red, round, sweet, and dependable in nearly any soil and any state. It gives you 2 crops from 1 row because the young tops cook up like spinach while the roots size up below. Every seed of a beet is actually a little cluster of seeds, so seedlings come up in bunches. Snip the extras with scissors instead of pulling them. Snip, don't pull, so you do not disturb the one you are keeping. They store for months in a box of damp sand in a cool corner of the basement, the same way the old cellars did it. Number 15, Country Gentleman sweet corn, an 1890 sweet corn with kernels packed in a crazy zigzag instead of straight rows, what the old-timers called shoe peg corn. 2 things earn it the spot. First, the flavor is old-fashioned corn flavor, creamy and rich, made for cutting off the cob into a skillet. Second, look at the husk. It wraps long and tight over the tip of the ear, and that snug husk is the ear's own door against the corn earworm that loves to slip in at the silk. Not a perfect door, but a real one, and the plant built it itself. Plant corn in a block of at least 4 short rows rather than 1 long row, 4 rows minimum, because corn is wind pollinated and needs neighbors to fill out its ears. And that brings us to the part I promised you at the start. What is the one thing that got bred out of our vegetables? It is the plant's own defense system, and the reason nobody noticed it leaving is that it walked out the door holding hands with flavor. Every plant on this list protects itself with its own natural chemistry. The compounds that make a tomato taste deeply of tomato, that give an old cabbage its bite and a carrot its perfume, are part of the same toolkit the plant uses to discourage the insects chewing on it. Strong flavor and strong defense are, to a large degree, the same thing. For 70 years, breeders selected for what the supermarket needed: milder, sweeter, more uniform, thicker skinned, tougher in a truck. Every one of those choices made honestly and for understandable reasons quietly thinned out that defensive chemistry. The vegetables got gentler and the bugs noticed before we did. That is half the answer. The other half is sitting in that mason jar in my potting shed. When a family saves seed from the same variety for 60 years, they do not save seed from the plant the beetles skeletonized. They save it from the plant that stood tall. Year after year, the survivors get chosen in that soil, under that pest pressure, in that weather. That jar is not just seed storage. It is a 60-year breeding program run at a kitchen table, selecting for toughness in the exact place the garden grows. So this fall, do what the old families do. Grow 1 or 2 open pollinated varieties from today's list. Watch which plant handles your garden best. Save seed from that one plant, dry it on a paper plate for 2 weeks, and label the jar with a pencil and a date. Do that for 5 years, and you will own a variety tuned to your own backyard, and no catalog on earth can sell you that. And that's the heart of what Daniel taught me. The book is the whole 30 days of it, layer by layer, so your garden can start defending itself this season instead of next. The 30-day Amish Pest-Proof Garden Protocol is 117 pages of the complete system, from why modern gardens attract pests in the first place, through the 5 defense layers, to seed saving and preserving what you grow. It is $17, marked down from $47, and $17 is less than 2 of those spray bottles you would otherwise buy again next spring and the spring after that. Now go ahead and grab your phone and open up your camera, the same one you use to take pictures. Point it at that square code on your screen and hold it steady for a second. A little link will pop up, give it a tap, and it will take you straight to the book. And if you are watching on your phone right now, the link is waiting for you right down below in the description. Take your time. There is no rush at all. I'll wait right here. So that is 15 old vegetables that earn their keep, and 1 jar of seeds that explains why. Did your folks or your grandparents garden without chemicals? Tell me one thing they did below. Those are exactly the methods worth saving. I read every single one. Next time, I'm going to show you the 3-foot flower border Daniel plants around every single vegetable bed, and the reason that strip of flowers cuts his pest problems roughly in half without him lifting a finger. Work with nature, not against it, and I'll see you in the garden.